decided to kind of go on this topic. So what I do want to do first and foremost is just kind of give you a very brief introduction as to like who I am and even why I decided to go down the life coaching side of things. I was kind of brought up, I was born in Mexico originally, and I came to Scotland when I was very, very little, about a year old. And I think throughout my early childhood, it stemmed, like the whole self-acceptance thing very much stemmed negatively from the get-go. I think initially because coming into a new country, not being from here, you were very much seen as different, and that wasn't really all that accepted back then at that time. I don't know if it's the same now, but I think there will always be a stigma attached to just being a little bit different. And this is where my personal journey of self-acceptance kind of started on maybe not so good a note. So from very early on, I really honestly spent the majority of my lifetime trying to do things or behave in certain ways that would make me feel more accepted by others. And all the while completely forgetting about what it was that I actually wanted for myself, what it was that actually made me happy, figuring out who it was that I actually was. Everything that I was doing in my lifetime, right up until adulthood, was very much related to trying to please other people and make other people happy, irrespective of how it made me feel, whether that was trying to make the parents happy and get the good school grades, or trying to do things that would fit in with the more popular crowd, or this, that, and the next thing. And I think this is why for me personally, the whole self-acceptance thing is a really, really big topic, and one that I do go into a lot of depth in when it comes to my coaching programs, purely organically, to be honest with you, because I think we can all kind of relate. Like I said, there's always going to be something that's holding us back, and it seems to come back to very often the matter of just not being able to fully accept who we are. If you think about it, how are we supposed to have any love for ourselves, any respect for ourselves, feel deserving of all of the things that we want for ourselves, if we can't even begin to accept everything about us? So for me, it's just the forefront, it's the foundation, it's everything that really you can build from. So this is why I wanted to talk about self-acceptance and self-understanding today. With any questions, feel free to just type them or take your microphone off of mute, ask away throughout. That's not a problem for me. Other than that, I'll make sure that I do ask if anyone has any questions at the end. With coaching, I mean, I've been doing coaching that's very much personal development related for the past year now, I think, roughly. And it's been a game changer for me because it's actually also taught me a lot about myself. But the one thing that I think I mentioned not that long ago that I found was very much a kind of theme throughout every person that I've coached, and actually in many conversations that I just seem to have with people, it just comes back to this thing about self-acceptance. So what is it? What is self-acceptance? What does that even mean? We all have different perspectives and understandings of things, and I'm obviously just going to give you what my understanding and what my learnings are based on what self-acceptance is, but I would love to hear or read anybody else's input. So if you think about self-acceptance, that for me is, in a nutshell, just embracing everything about us. So if we are able to be fully self-accepting, we're able to recognize and embrace both our abilities and our limitations. It's recognizing that we have both ends of the spectrum, strengths and weaknesses, and just embracing them both. It's about accepting all aspects of ourselves. It's not about looking on social media and seeing all of the filtered lifestyle photos, all the good times, all the happy memories that people are posting, and feeling worse about ourselves because we, compare, without actually remembering that everyone else is also having some sort of challenge and some sort of struggle on the other side. I think it's very important to just remember to take the rough with the smooth, and realizing that without the dark, there is no light. So it's recognizing that life is never always going to be good. This just the same way as that it's never always going to be bad. It's never always going to be one way or another. We always have both ends of the spectrum. We're going to be happy one moment, sad the next, angry one moment, delighted the next, patient then impatient. You know, it's realizing that everything about us as human beings involves both the good and the negative. And being able to accept that will put us in a far better position and a far more state of acceptance, in terms of just recognizing that, you know what, maybe I'm struggling with this right now, or maybe I don't like this part about myself just now, but what I can do is take that challenging or negative aspect and I can try to use it to learn a bit more about myself. So like, how do I begin to fully accept myself if I don't even really know where to start? Start looking at the traits that you have. Be honest with yourself. I always tell this to like my clients or whenever I'm speaking about it. Don't look at yourself and write all of the good things about you. You need to be freaking realistic here. Include the bad by your definition, of course, as well as the good. Identify what your limitations are or your weaknesses are, as well as your strengths. List them out, and with them all, identify why it is that you believe that it's a good or a bad trait as well, because that will also be able to help you understand yourself a bit better. For example, the bad traits in particular, by identifying why you deem them as bad traits, it will actually begin to show you, if you look at it like this, and I'll show you how, to show you what it is that you actually value. By looking at the things that you see as one of your limitations, understanding more about it will allow you to give yourself the opportunity to show you what it is that you cherish the most. So let's just say, for example, one of your negatives is that you think that you're a perfectionist. I'm totally just throwing an example out there. It could mean that actually what you value is a high standard or quality in whatever aspect of life that it is that you seek perfectionism in. Or if one of your negatives is that you think that you can be like very sensitive, it could also teach you that you value being caring and that you care a lot. So by finding what it is that each one of your traits will tell you about yourself, you'll not only be able to understand why you are the way that you are a little bit more, but you'll also be able to embrace all aspects of yourself, both the good and the bad. So I hope that makes any sense so far. I'm just going to double check to see if I've got any questions for the meantime. Nope, we're all good to go. That's perfect. I'm still learning the whole Zoom thing, guys, so appreciate your patience. So self-understanding and self-acceptance, like how do they correlate? What's the connection there? Well, the more that you figure out more about why you are the way that you are, it's going to be far easier for you to accept it. It's very simple. So I think from my personal kind of experiences, life has definitely taught me that if I didn't actually start to dig into my behaviors and even ask the question as to like why I behaved the way that I did and why I had certain reactions, I could never really pinpoint a root cause that I would be able to use to see if I could change it. So it took me a long time, through training, through learning things for myself, through life experiences, to just sit and take a step back and ask myself the question, like, why am I behaving like this? Why am I trying to do things that are very much focused on pleasing other people, even if it's a detriment to myself? Well, probably because I'm lacking a little bit in self-love, self-worth, self-acceptance. How do I change that? God, I don't know at this point. I'm thinking like, where do I even begin? But even just looking back now, I started to look at my past experiences. What were pinnacle points in my life that potentially contributed to the belief systems that I have now? That's maybe conversations that I've had in previous relationships that told me that I'm not good enough, I'm not attractive enough, I'm this, that, and the next thing. Do you know what a good example actually is one of my actual previous relationships. We were together for a number of years. It was highly physically, emotionally, sexually abusive, but I was consistently putting the blame on that person. Why is he hurting me like this when all I want to do is give him love? For 4 years, I blamed the other person. I forgot that actually, as hard a pill as it was to swallow, I needed to take ownership. The reason why this is happening to me is because I'm allowing it. That's why. And then I started to ask the question, why am I allowing that to happen? So the more that you ask yourself why, the more that you'll be able to dig a little bit deeper. And then when eventually I came to, take ownership of the fact that everything that was happening in my life at the time was because it was something that I was just tolerating, everything massively shifted. Because you then get to decide whether or not you choose to accept this behavior or accept this belief moving forward. And now if you don't, you might slip back into old cycles because that's what you're used to, and that's okay. But as long as you have that awareness now, you're probably going to repeat the cycles in a far shorter space of time to be able to go back to trying to change the game for yourself. Another example from the physical appearance side of things, because my self-acceptance was very, very much related to physical appearance. I've always battled with that as far back as I can remember. And it comes from, again, when I ask myself the question, why am I cluttering my face in makeup? Why am I dyeing my hair all these different colors? Why am I wearing all these types of clothes? It's because I wasn't feeling good about myself, because I'd taken on the comments of other people, whether that was family members telling me that, I shouldn't eat this or I shouldn't eat that because it will make me gain weight, or it was one of my other ex-partners. We were actually not together for a long time because he was refusing to be with someone unless she was a 10 out of 10. Now, had I had a bit more self-respect and a bit more self-love, I would have literally exited far, far longer ago. But it took me 4 years with that person, again, another 4, to realize that actually it's got nothing to do with the other person. They're just projecting their own insecurities on me, and what they classify as beauty has got nothing to do with me, really. So again, asking myself the question, why am I doing this? Why am I tolerating that? Comes back to lack of self-acceptance, lack of understanding who I actually was. If I don't know who I am, I don't know how I can stand my ground. If I don't know what I'm all about, how am I be able to stand in my truth? So from personal experience is what I'm trying to give you. This is why I really, really push on the self-acceptance and self-understanding side of things in probably most conversations and topics and programs that I have worked in so far. So I have a little exercise that I would really like to try and run through with you guys, if that's okay. And nobody needs to actually interactively take part, but if anyone would like to share, their own understandings, that would be amazing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. But before I do, I'm going to talk about something that is very much related to values. What are values? What are our core values? The first step of understanding more about who we are is finding out the foundations of everything that we stand for. And those are our core values. Now, if we don't know what our core values are, it's actually quite easy to start to filter them down. You just need to think about the things that matter the most to you in life. And what I've done for the purposes of this exercise is I've selected a select few examples of core values. And what I would love to do is use those core values as a way of example to emphasize more about what it is in your life that matters the most and how we can understand ourselves most by using the core value systems. So I'm just going to share my screen here, if I can figure out how. Oh, I do figure out how. Okay. So bear with me, guys. Share screen. Okay. Can everyone see this? Can someone give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen for me, please? We'll go from there. Okay. Oh, right. Can anyone tell me if they can see the screen, please? Is that okay? Anybody? Chat. Yes, can see the screen. Great. Thank you. Sorry, I think that was a bit slow from my end. Much appreciated, guys. Okay, so these core values, again, are just very much examples, and there are so many of them. So don't feel as though this is like a limited thing. This is, again, just for the purposes of our exercise here. So if we think about the things that we cherish the most, what is it in our life that is the most important to us, that will give us a very, very strong standpoint for the things that our core values are based upon. So maybe you're really into family, you're really into friendships, that would be something that is a core value. If you're someone, for example, that really, really works on their diet and their physical fitness and their mental health, and you're really focused on keeping your mental and physical vessel in peak condition, one of your core values might be health. If you're someone that highly, highly recognizes spontaneity and doing things that make you laugh and having a good time with your friends, one of your core values might be fun. If you're someone that is really connected to source and lives and breathes that kind of aspect of life and loves meditation and the things that meditation can bring, it might be spirituality that's one of your core values. So have a think about the things that you can massively relate to and resonate with the most. These will be your core values. So what I would love to do is just to ask you guys, if you're doing this exercise along with me, to just write down at least a couple or a few values that you believe that you have based on the core values that are on the screen for you just now. And we'll be able to move on to the next step of the exercise if you haven't done so already. So just have a think about what it is in life that you really cherish the most. What is it that means the most to you? And just note them down. Once you've got that down, what I would love for you to do is just now actually write down, maybe on the other side of the paper. Actually, what I would do is split your paper into like 2 columns. So like the first column would be the list of the core values that you've written on the left, and then the right hand side, the other half of the paper, I would write down some of the things that you want most for yourself in life that you don't currently have, even if you're close to having it. Write down a couple of these things. I'm going to give you some examples here in the next page, just so you can see what I'm talking about. If my screen will let me. There we go. So this is just an example of what I've given here. So I've listed out 4 core values as an example on the left side of the page, and just a couple of examples of the things that potentially someone might want most in life. This is just something as an example. So it could be to travel the world. It could be to have fulfilling relationships. It could also be to be in like peak physical condition or peak mental condition. So whatever it is that you want the most in life, even if that means that you're currently working towards that, it's just, if the end goal hasn't been achieved yet, just write it down. So now we have a list of the core values, and now we have a list of really what I would call as voids, things that we want. We're maybe working towards them, but there's still things that we want. We perhaps don't have them fully yet. And I'm going to show you the connection between the two. This very much comes from someone that I follow and hugely relate with the content that he puts out. His name is Dr. John Demartini. If any of you have heard of him, I think the guy is an absolute legend. His story itself is incredible. He's a human behavior specialist, and he basically talks about how the things that we experience in life actually determine a lot of the things that we begin to value the most. So for example, it could be that you were maybe brought up in a very unstable family where, you know, it was like a broken family home type of environment. And lo and behold, that person lands up being someone that really cherishes and values like family orientated lifestyle. And they may go on into further down the line into life, really being an example of exemplary family person. So it's just showing that the voids that we have, the things that we want the most, are actually the things that become our value systems. So if there's one person that I would recommend that you go and search, if you haven't heard of him already, it's definitely John Demartini. I'll maybe pop a little comment in the chat box in terms of his name once we're finished. So we're going to find the connection between the two now. So for example, the void per se, or that wanting, for example, to have a fulfilling relationship, could coincide with that value of connection and honesty. That makes sense? And then, for example, travel or wanting to travel the world could actually show you that you value your freedom and you value adventure. So it's just having a look at the things that, you know, we maybe don't have them. This might be something that we're working towards, but it will help you understand what it is that you value most. And when we begin to live in our values, holy, that literally changes the game for how you start to live your life. When you're living in your value systems, you're going to feel far more fulfilled. You're going to feel far more purposeful, and you're not going to feel as though you're wasting any of your time. So that in itself will give you a really good foundation for self-understanding. Understanding what it is that you value most and being able to live in that once you figured that out will change the game for you if you haven't done that already. And I guess also from an acceptance point of view, by recognizing that, okay, although we do have these voids or things that, you know, we so desire that we maybe don't currently have, or are not living in our values, that actually shows us what means most to us. And by being able to do that, we can start to embrace those voids as something positive, and therefore begin to accept that part of ourselves as well. So the whole moral of this story, guys, what I'm trying to say is that whether it's a positive or a negative, you'll be able to take something from it. If it's a struggle that you have, if it's a challenge that you have, it's a void that you're trying to fill, look at yourself and ask yourself the question, like, what is that challenge or what is that void actually trying to teach me about myself? What's the lesson in it for me? Because by being able to do that, you're going to have so much more self-understanding and far greater acceptance of where you're at. And it will give you a huge foundation to be able to start putting things into place to becoming more of the person that you want to be and living the life that you want to have. So hopefully that makes some sense. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for the time being just now. Hopefully that's working. But yeah, that exercise in itself, as much as it is very, very simple, I have personally found that it's been something quite effective. I've done it in different forms, actually never like this before. So this was also, I guess, a moment of being able to try something new and get out of my own comfort zone for my own growth for myself. So Yeah, which I'm also very grateful for. But all in all, the overall outcome is always going to be the same. So now that we understand what it is about self-acceptance, we know it's about embracing both sides of the story. We know that it's about taking the good and the bad and realizing that we can actually take a lot of value from either part. You know, without the dark, there is no light. So although we do have voids or things that we want for ourselves or things that we're maybe a bit missing or maybe things that we don't like about ourselves, those voids will actually be able to demonstrate to us the thing in life that means the most to us. So yes, recognizing that, okay, yeah, we maybe do have flaws. And yes, there are maybe things in life that we feel are missing. But it's those weaknesses and those limitations that are honestly equally as important as the strengths and the positives, if not maybe more so, because that's what teaches us about ourselves, teaches us about who we are, what we value, how we want to live our life. So by finding out those lessons, that in itself will allow you to embrace a lot more of yourself than we would like to maybe think we can't in the first place. So hopefully that makes any sense. I would love to kind of open the floor and just see if anyone has any feedback, to be honest with you. Like what are your values? What is it that you value the most? What is it that you cherish? What is one of your voids? Does the void correlate back to the value? Let's see if there's anything you can pop in the chat for me, or even come off your microphones. Either way is absolutely fine. I'll just give it a minute. Nope. Okay, guys. Oh, quick question. Yes, Guido, is that how you pronounce it? Crack on with your question, please. That would be amazing. If I like honesty, but the person I'm going out with doesn't value this so much, then what to do? Yeah, do you know something? That's actually something that I was speaking about not that long ago on my Instagram story. And it's talking about love languages. So I don't know if anyone here has heard of love languages, but basically there is a book by a guy called David Chapman who wrote something about there being 5 love languages, basically. And he basically talks about these 5 love languages being the things that he's categorized to show what we maybe value the most when it comes to relationships and how we actually show love, as well as the way that we prefer to receive it. So the 5 are, I think off the top of my head, acts of service, words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, and receiving gifts. So what he talks about is you need to determine what your main number 1 love language actually is. For me, it would be on par, quality time and physical touch. So in order for me to be able to identify what that is for me, just like you're mentioning there, if yours is honesty, it's about communicating that with your partner so that they can understand it, and hopefully you can work together to be able to meet one another's needs. Now, if you have someone that you're with whose love language maybe is, rather than quality time or physical touch, and they very much value things like receiving gifts, for example, if I'm trying to show that partner who prefers to receive gifts as a way of receiving love, and I'm doing it in my own love language and trying to be touchy-feely and affectionate with them, or trying to have a bit of quality time with them, they're not going to feel as though their needs are being met. Just vice versa, the way that if they were trying to put their love language on me and what they valued the most, I would probably feel as though I'm not being held in the affection, my needs are not being met. So it's about understanding that, yes, we can have different value systems, but the more that we communicate that with one another, it will hopefully put you in the forefront to be able to understand what the other person's needs are, communicate what yours are at the same time, and work together to be able to make sure that you're both doing the things that will help you to grow together in that relationship. So if the other person, for example, doesn't value honesty, then it's up to you to communicate that. Now, if you have already communicated it and there's still a problem there, then that's something that obviously you might need to try and tackle with a little bit more depth. But first and foremost, communication is key. The other person doesn't know that you really value honesty, then how are they going to even have any standing chance? If they do and they're ignoring it, that's a completely different topic. But let me know, Guido, if I've answered your question okay or not. Joan, so difficult to have self-love. 100% agree with you, Joan. 100% agree with you. It took me a very, very long time to actually even understand what that even looked like. It took me a very long time. Guido, that was useful. Thanks. You're so welcome. Thank you for your question. It took me a long time to understand anything that even related to how to build any levels of self-love. The first thing that I would probably do when it comes to self-love is just, again, kind of like what we talked about, understanding our core value systems. Look at the things that bring you joy. What makes you most happiest? So for me, it's things like music, it's things like nature, it's things like exercise, it's things like reading. So if you look at the handful of things that you actually enjoy, start writing them down, put them in some sort of, I don't know, stick it on your wall, put it on your phone. And as long as you make sure that you're doing at least one of those things for yourself on a daily basis, that will mean that you're actually inadvertently making sure that you're prioritizing time for yourself at least once a day. What does that do for yourself? Fills up your own cup. If we're consistently trying to chase after everybody else and prioritizing everyone else's needs, but not our own, we're going to be running on empty. The self-love and the self-worth is also going to be low. So that's one thing that I definitely recommend doing. Another thing is actually mirror work. Now, what do I mean by mirror work? Yeah, okay, it's standing in front of the mirror and picking out things that you like about yourself. I don't just mean about physical appearance here. I mean internal and external matters. I stand in front of the mirror daily, even if it takes me half an hour with frustration and a tantrum to find something that I like about myself. I do it. Why? Because that allows me to build on that level of self-love and acceptance. Mirror work, that's another one. So just take a minute, whether it's when you first get up in the morning or before you go to bed, just stand in front of the mirror and pick out at least one or two things that you like about yourself, both internally and physically, externally, every day. And if you can, try and pick something new every now and again, rather than reverting back to the same thing that you just picked out the night before. So that's another one for self-love. Another one with self-love actually is setting boundaries. It's a very, very difficult one to maintain, especially for people who are very much focused on making sure everyone else is happy. But with that, people that lack self-love tend to sometimes actually lack boundaries. They like to make sure that they're just saying yes, even though they don't really want to say yes, because they think it's going to have some sort of positive effect with the other person. They're going to feel as though, if I do that thing that that person wants me to do, then maybe they're going to accept me a little bit more. Maybe they're going to show me a little bit more love. That's not love that we need. The person that will actually respect your boundaries is the kind of person that you want to have in your life. You will never be able to maintain your boundaries and the standards that you set for yourself if you don't communicate what they are. Oh, sorry, I thought there was another question coming up there. So setting your boundaries is one, maintaining them is another thing, but you just have to stand your ground. And then probably finally, one more example of how you can build on your self-love. This is the biggest one for me. It's getting out of your comfort zone. It's doing something that scares the life out of you. Why? Because if you do something that you want to do, but you're absolutely terrified to do it, just think about how good you feel about yourself when you smash it out of the park. Think about how good you feel about yourself when you know that you did that thing that was scary, but you overcame it. By doing shit that's hard will boost your confidence like nothing else. So, for example, I did a workshop with a group of people. It's a 4-week workshop. It's a free workshop. I do them every now and again. Actually, the next one that I'm running is going to be starting on Tuesday. So if anyone wants to get some more information on that, please let me know. It's all about building a better relationship with yourself. And one of the things that one of the participants decided to do was, as minuscule as it sounds, she decided to get out of her comfort zone by actually not wearing a full face of makeup and doing her hair and all of the rest of it just to go for a walk along the beach. She said that she hadn't been able to do that in, I think it was 8-9 years. So she went barefaced, she went for a walk, and she said, I know that this might sound silly, but the sheer fact that I did it, I've never felt more liberated in my life. I feel so good about myself. Her confidence just shot through the roof. The same thing actually with one of the other guys that was on the workshop. He really struggles with that boundary thing. Saying no when he wants to say no is something that he really struggles with. So he came back after another week and we all reflected on what we did and getting out of our comfort zone. And he said that, I think it was like a Tuesday night or something, his partner wanted to do something, and normally he would just be like, okay, let's do it, even though he doesn't want to. And he said no. And he decided that he was going to take the time that where he would have said yes, even though he didn't want to just be by himself. I think he played Xbox or something. He said, I've never felt so liberated again. So it's all about just doing things that get you out of that stance of, I'm not really happy here, but it's familiar. So getting yourself out of the comfort zone. These are all things and examples that you can do for just boosting your self-love, self-acceptance, self-worth. So hopefully that helps, Joan. Your website, please. Yeah, absolutely. So what I'm just going to do here for the last few minutes is I've actually put on the last slide of my PowerPoint my details, so that if anyone wants to find me on the likes of Facebook or Instagram, or even send me an email, you've got my information right in front of you. You're so welcome, Joan. Thank you for the question. Oh, how do I share my screen? Here we go. This is me getting out of my comfort zone, guys, for sure. So yeah, it's all about the growth. It's all about your growth game. So let's see. Can everyone see my screen? One thing I do really need to learn more about is how to work Zoom, let's be honest. Yeah, so hopefully you should be able to see that. Oh, the chat function is definitely helping. Thanks for this lovely talk, very interesting. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. I really appreciate it. So yeah, everything's on the screen. Hopefully you can see it. If you can't, please let me know. But my name is Ali Ramirez, and yes, on Instagram and your Facebook, I am your growth game, because I'm very much all about just evolving yourself. And to be able to do that, there are steps to get to that point. It's all about self-understanding. It's helping you reconnect with yourself, making peace with your past, making peace with your experiences, and using them as lessons so that you can grow into the person that you want to become today. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's _Coach Ali _your growth game. And again, email address is yourgrowthgame@mail.com. Thank you. Bronwyn, thank you for the thanks. And thank you, IPHM, for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully some of that made sense for you all.